They say the perfect place to hide a knife is behind the back of someone who thinks they buried you 5 years ago. When I willingly stripped off my crown to step into the shadows, the arrogant fools assumed I was obsolete. They feasted on the empire I built, never realizing their throne of power was actually an electric chair, and the only switch remains firmly in the hand of the woman pouring their morning coffee. Hello to the wonderful audience of Boss Revenge Stories. Unfortunately, YouTube has completely disabled monetization on our channel, leaving us without the budget to keep operating. If you enjoyed today's story, please consider supporting us with just $1 so we can pay our hardworking team to cover their living expenses and continue creating stories for you. You can donate by scanning the PayPal QR code on your screen or by clicking the PayPal link in the description or the pinned comment of this video. My name is Aspen Rodriguez, and I am 38 years old. The sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Aetherist Dynamics is designed to make everyone inside look golden and invincible. We are located in the beating heart of Austin, Texas, a glittering monument to technological innovation and corporate greed. I built this place from nothing but sleepless nights, instant ramen, and lines of code. Now, it is a fortress of glass and steel, filled with people who wear designer clothes and speak in empty buzzwords. I walk these halls every single day, completely invisible to the people who now claim to own them. I am officially listed in the corporate directory as a low-level data analyst, a drone, a nobody. It was not an accident. Some time ago, I orchestrated a deliberate, quiet downfall. I engineered a fake public relations crisis, a manufactured failure that placed the company in momentary jeopardy. I wanted to see who would stand by me and who would push me off the ledge. The answer was swift and brutal. The board panicked, the investors howled, and the very people I had handpicked to lead turned their backs on me. So, I offered my resignation as chief executive officer. I stripped away my own authority, stepped into the dark, and took a desk in the dimly lit corner of the data processing floor. I wanted to watch them show their true colors. The most vibrant color of betrayal belongs to Julian Sterling. I found Julian when he was just a brilliant, hungry kid with big ideas and an empty bank account. I mentored him. I taught him how to navigate the vicious waters of the tech industry. I practically handed him the keys to the kingdom when I stepped down, believing somewhere deep inside that he might have a shred of loyalty. I was wrong. Julian took the top title and immediately began erasing my legacy. Now, he struts through the office like a young emperor. During our mandatory departmental updates, he goes out of his way to humiliate me. Just yesterday, in front of a dozen new hires, he waved his hand dismissively in my direction. "Give those server logs to the data librarian," he said, not even bothering to look me in the eye. The room chuckled. He uses my presence as a prop, a living testament to his triumph over the old guard. But Julian is as cowardly as he is arrogant. He lacks the spine to completely gut the company on his own. To do the heavy lifting, he brought in Vance Thorne. Vance is a ruthless corporate consultant flown in directly from Wall Street, paid a staggering 7-figure salary. Vance does not care about artificial intelligence or innovation. To him, Aetherist Dynamics is just a bloated cow waiting to be slaughtered. He was hired to orchestrate a hostile internal purge, fire the expensive veteran engineers, and dress the company up for a massive, soulless acquisition. Vance stalks the corridors like a wolf among sheep, his sharp suits hiding a completely hollow interior. And so, my daily routine is one of profound, silent humiliation. I sit in the furthest corner of the executive boardroom during their high-level strategy meetings. My job is to quietly record minutes and manage the presentation slides. When the caterers are late, I am the one who stands up and pours sparkling water into the crystal glasses of the men who are actively plotting to butcher my brainchild. I listen to them debate which of my original team members to terminate next. I watch them carve up my life's work, completely oblivious to the fact that I'm observing every single breath they take. They think I am broken. They assume my silence is the pathetic surrender of a defeated woman. What these arrogant fools do not realize is that the ice beneath their feet is dangerously thin. When I stepped down, I did not just walk away. Through a labyrinthine network of anonymous offshore holding companies and highly classified trusts, I still maintain absolute control over 60% of the core voting shares. I am the invisible puppeteer holding the strings of their reality. My demotion to the data department was not a punishment. It was a tactical insertion. Being a low-level analyst gives me unrestricted, unnoticed access to the deepest layers of our central server architecture. While Julian and Vance sip their expensive coffee and laugh about the data librarian, I am inside their digital lives. I read every single encrypted email Vance sends back to his Wall Street cronies. I track every single penny of the hidden consulting fees Julian is siphoning into his private accounts. I know their passwords, their schedules, and their dirty little secrets. They are building a gallows, completely unaware that I am the one holding the rope. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. The glow of my dual monitors casts long, jagged shadows across my apartment living room. The silence of the city outside is completely drowned out by the hum of my processing units. I am running a routine, unauthorized packet sweep through the external firewall ports of our main campus. It is usually just a lot of encrypted static, the digital equivalent of white noise. But tonight, the visualizer on my screen spikes violently into the red. There is a massive data hemorrhage. Someone is bleeding our deepest server vaults dry. I trace the protocol routing through a maze of virtual private networks. It is not a glitch. It is a highly sophisticated segmented file transfer, masked as mundane outbound email traffic. I crack the encryption key using a deeply hidden backdoor I installed 5 years ago. What I see makes my blood run freezing cold. They are moving the core artificial intelligence source code. Julian and Vance are funneling the very soul of the company, millions of lines of proprietary algorithms, to our biggest competitor in Silicon Valley. They are doing it through dummy consulting contracts, invoicing $5 million a month for fake software optimization reports while actually handing over our crown jewels on a silver platter. I dig deeper into the authorization logs, my fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard with frantic precision. Every transaction of this magnitude requires absolute top-level clearance. I expect to see Julian's executive credentials stamped on the outgoing packets. Instead, the screen flashes a validation sequence that makes me freeze mid-keystroke. The digital signature attached to these ghost contracts is mine. My old, supposedly deactivated biometric hash and private cryptographic keys are plastered all over every single illegal transfer. The sheer audacity of it takes my breath away. They did not just steal my life's work. They stole my identity. Julian, the boy I taught everything about cybersecurity, had salvaged my old retina scan data and voice print protocols from the legacy security system before we updated it last year. They are actively framing me. When the Federal Bureau of Investigation eventually kicks down the doors for corporate espionage, the digital trail will bypass the executive suites completely. It will lead straight down to the pathetic data analyst sitting in the corner cubicle. Julian and Vance will walk away with massive golden parachutes, and I will be facing 20 years in a maximum security federal penitentiary. Panic is a useless emotion. It is a liability I cannot afford right now. I take a slow, deep breath, letting the cold fury sharpen my focus into a razor edge. If they want to steal my code, I will gladly give it to them. I reroute my connection through 7 different proxy servers, bouncing my signal from Tokyo to Reykjavik to Berlin, before slipping into the master server's root directory as an absolute ghost. I locate the specific partitioned folders they have queued up for tomorrow's extraction. I do not stop the transfer. Instead, I carefully inject a subtle, virulent string of commands directly into the neural network architecture. It is a logic bomb, a digital poison pill. On the surface, the source code looks completely flawless. It will compile perfectly and pass every preliminary check, but the exact moment the rival company integrates it into their mainframes and runs a system-wide diagnostic, the bomb will detonate. It will quietly overwrite their primary boot sectors, permanently encrypt their proprietary client databases, and burn their entire server farm to the ground from the inside out. They want to use my weapon against me. I will make sure it violently explodes in their hands. I need an anchor in the real physical world, someone who operates outside the sterile realm of firewalls and algorithms. I pick up my untraceable burner phone and dial a number I have memorized by heart. It rings exactly twice. "Yeah," a gruff voice answers. It is Marcus. He spent 15 years tracking international financial terrorists for the government before becoming a private investigator who vastly prefers shadows to courtrooms. "We have a massive leak," I tell him, keeping my voice deadpan, "and a highly engineered frame job." I can hear him shifting in his leather chair. "Send me the routing numbers," he replies simply. Over the next 48 hours, while I maintain my miserable, subservient daytime disguise at the office, Marcus and I work in total, unspoken synchronization. I feed him the encrypted financial logs, and he physically tracks the shell companies across the globe. We are not just gathering random clues. We are meticulously building a bulletproof, undeniable criminal dossier. We are tracking every offshore account, every fake consulting firm, and every single dirty cent Julian and Vance are trying to wash clean. But Julian is rapidly accelerating his timeline. The pressure inside the corporate headquarters becomes physically suffocating. On Monday morning, I walk into the glass lobby only to find 4 of my oldest, most loyal lead engineers packing their desks into cardboard boxes, flanked by armed security guards. Julian is initiating a merciless mass purge. He is systematically firing anyone who ever showed an ounce of allegiance to me, replacing them with Vance's mindless corporate drones who ask 0 questions. By Tuesday afternoon, I discover my own security clearance has been heavily downgraded without a single word of warning. I can no longer access the secondary research wings, and my network privileges are suddenly restricted to the most basic local drives. They are actively, aggressively isolating me, stripping away my tools one by one to ensure 0 resistance for the upcoming annual shareholder meeting. Julian wants the board completely sanitized and totally under his thumb when he proposes his final, devastating takeover bid. I sit in my cramped, dark cubicle, quietly sipping cold coffee, completely locked out of the system I built. He thinks he has backed me into a helpless corner, completely unaware that I am the one silently locking the door from the outside. The internal company memo drops on a Thursday afternoon. Vance Thorne officially circulates what he calls Restructuring Plan Version 2. It is a masterpiece of corporate doublespeak, a 50-page document filled with aggressive legal jargon designed to obscure a singular, violent purpose. The plan schedules an emergency vote for the upcoming annual investor conference. The stated public goal is to issue a massive wave of new equity to raise capital for global expansion. The actual, insidious objective is to aggressively dilute the shares of all original, inactive stakeholders. Julian and Vance want to mathematically erase my existence from the capitalization table. If the vote passes on the conference floor, my hidden 60% majority stake will be watered down to a completely meaningless fraction. They are trying to lock me out of my own house permanently. I decide to give them exactly the reaction they are looking for. Psychological warfare is just another form of coding. You input the expected variable to trigger a specific, predictable output. I begin leaving my workstation monitor unlocked, prominently displaying open browser tabs for entry-level data processing jobs and cheap apartment rentals in completely different states. When Vance books the executive glass room for his private strategy sessions, I purposefully linger. I scurry in like a frightened animal to clear away his empty espresso cups and wipe down the whiteboard. I make sure my hands tremble slightly when I pick up his discarded notes. He watches me from the head of the table with a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. I can practically see the dopamine flooding his brain. He genuinely believes I am utterly crushed, a pathetic shell of a founder begging for scraps at the bottom of the food chain. He mistakes my perfectly executed camouflage for a white flag of surrender. While Julian and Vance spend their evenings popping expensive champagne at downtown rooftop bars to celebrate their imminent victory, I make my move. I wait until the city sleeps. Then I drive an untraceable rental car out to a private subterranean wine cellar on the far outskirts of Austin. The air down here is cool, smelling faintly of ancient oak barrels and damp earth. Sitting around a heavy mahogany table are three people Julian never bothered to understand. They are the original sharks. They are the angel investors who funded my very first prototype in a dusty garage more than a decade ago. These three individuals have watched Julian strut around the industry like a peacock, and they absolutely despise his slick, deceptive arrogance. They do not care about his flashy magazine covers or his empty promises of endless quarter-over-quarter growth. They care about the foundational integrity of the machine they helped build. I take a seat directly across from them. I do not waste our time with pleasantries or apologies. I lay out the meticulously gathered financial logs, the offshore routing numbers, and the undeniable proof of the stolen source code that Marcus and I compiled. I watch the expressions on their weathered faces shift from grim curiosity to cold, calculating anger. Julian is planning to sell the entire house while we are all still sleeping inside it. I tell them, my voice perfectly steady and low in the dim light. But he forgot who actually poured the concrete foundation. I slide a sleek, encrypted tablet across the mahogany table. 5 years ago, when we first integrated blockchain architecture into our corporate governance model, I buried a failsafe deep within the foundational smart contracts. It is called the Override Protocol. It is a digital guillotine completely invisible to standard audits, designed to instantly freeze the entire company infrastructure in the event of a catastrophic executive breach. However, it requires absolute consensus. It remains completely dormant unless it receives 3 simultaneous digital cryptographic signatures from the original founding board members, the 3 people sitting right in front of me. I need your keys, I say, meeting their hardened gazes one by one. When the time comes, I need you to authorize the kill switch. The oldest of the 3, a man who built his massive fortune destroying men exactly like Vance Thorne, picks up the tablet. He does not hesitate for a single second. He inputs his biometric sequence, followed closely by the other 2. The screen flashes a brilliant emerald green. The protocol is primed. The safety mechanism is officially off. I return to my apartment long past midnight. I stand in my quiet kitchen and open a pristine black leather briefcase on the counter. Inside, I carefully arrange the thick stacks of financial forensics, the physical copies of the dormant smart contracts, and the irrefutable evidence of the biometric forgery. Everything is perfectly aligned. It is a masterclass in corporate execution, packaged and waiting for the right stage. I close the briefcase, the heavy brass clasps snapping shut with a satisfying, metallic click that echoes in the empty room. The annual investor conference is exactly 3 days away. Julian thinks he is about to ascend to the absolute throne, but he has simply spent the last 6 months digging a very expensive grave. All I have to do now is sit in the shadows, watch the clock tick down, and wait for him to gladly jump inside. The annual investor conference unfolds at the most aggressively opulent luxury hotel in downtown Austin, a venue chosen specifically to project an aura of untouchable wealth. The grand ballroom is draped in massive, glossy banners that declare a new epoch of innovation, though the only thing truly innovating here is the sheer scale of their corporate fraud. Waiters in crisp white tuxedos circulate with trays of champagne that cost more per bottle than the monthly salary of the junior developers Julian just fired. It is a nauseating display of manufactured success. Julian Sterling and Vance Thorne finally make their grand entrance, walking through the double mahogany doors like conquering monarchs returning from a glorious crusade. They are practically suffocating the room with their designer cologne and their blinding, teeth-whitened smiles, shaking hands and patting backs as if they personally invented the concept of silicon. Julian, ever the master of petty cruelty, could not resist twisting the knife one final time. He specifically bypassed the event coordination team and directly assigned me to the front reception desk. I am wearing a generic black blazer, standing behind a cheap folding table piled high with plastic name tags and brightly colored lanyards. He wants me here. He wants me to physically hand the credentials of his victory to the very people he is using to destroy me. He wants me to watch my empire be auctioned off from the absolute lowest, most humiliating vantage point possible. Throughout the morning, hundreds of venture capitalists, tech bloggers, and hedge fund managers walk right past me. They snatch their badges from my hands without even making eye contact, completely unaware that they are taking their name tags from the woman who wrote the foundational code making this entire gathering possible. I hand out the badges with a pleasant, dead-eyed smile. Absorbing every ounce of this degradation, I let it fuel the cold reactor burning inside my chest. By 10 o'clock, the heavy velvet curtains are drawn, and the main presentation begins. The lights dim dramatically, replaced by a pulsating laser light show that costs a small fortune. Julian bounds onto the grand stage. He holds a sleek microphone, pacing back and forth with the practiced, arrogant swagger of a tech guru who believes his own fabricated mythology. He spends the first 20 minutes delivering a sermon built entirely on stolen ideas and empty buzzwords. He speaks passionately about synergy, paradigm shifts, and his brilliant new vision for the future of artificial intelligence. Then, he pivots to the actual agenda. He brings up the restructuring plan, standing in front of a colossal, high-definition screen displaying upward-trending graphs. Julian publicly mocks the foundational era of the company. For too long, Aetherist Dynamics has been chained to the ground by obsolete thinking, he declares, his voice echoing through the massive speakers. We have been held hostage by a risk-averse old guard. Those early founders lacked the necessary courage to scale. Today, we break those chains. Today, we introduce a comprehensive equity issuance plan that will dilute the dead weight and place the power firmly in the hands of those who are actually driving us forward. He is calling me dead weight to a room of 500 people. He is openly bragging about his scheme to steal my voting power, dressing up a hostile corporate coup as a visionary leap of faith. And the absolute worst part is that the audience is buying it. They are nodding along, completely hypnotized by the sleek graphics and the promise of exponential returns. Down in the front row, comfortably slouched in a plush VIP seat, sits Vance Thorne. He is not even looking at the stage. He is looking back over his shoulder, scanning the darkness at the rear of the hall until his eyes lock onto mine. A slow, sickeningly triumphant smirk spreads across his face. He raises his crystal champagne flute in my direction, a silent, mocking toast. In his mind, the war is already over. He genuinely believes they have successfully manipulated the entire board, hypnotized the shareholders, and swallowed Aetherist Dynamics whole without breaking a single drop of sweat. The sheer magnitude of their hubris is physically repulsive. They have crowned themselves kings of a paper castle. The ballroom erupts into a thunderous standing ovation as Julian finishes his grand monologue. The applause washes over the room in deafening waves. Men in expensive suits are cheering, completely oblivious to the fact that they are applauding a thief, under the cover of the roaring crowd. I abandon the reception desk. I slip quietly into the deep shadows at the very back of the auditorium. Leaning against the cold wall, I reach into my pocket. My phone vibrates exactly one time. I pull it out and glance at the illuminated screen. It is a short, encrypted text message from Marcus. The net is set. The prey is in the cage. I slide the phone back into my pocket. I look up at Julian, who is currently bathing in the blinding spotlights, soaking up the adoration. He is smiling. I let him have this one final, fleeting moment of absolute joy. Let him enjoy the applause, because it is the very last time anyone in this industry will ever clap for him. The deafening applause gradually subsides into a murmur of excited chatter as the presentation transitions into the question and answer segment. The house lights come up just enough to illuminate the faces of the eager audience. Julian leans against the edge of the podium, loosening his expensive silk tie by exactly half an inch to project an aura of casual brilliance. He points to a man in the third row. I recognize the man instantly. He is not an independent venture capitalist. He is a paid proxy, a discreet associate from Vance Thorne's Wall Street firm, planted in the crowd to execute the final maneuver. The man stands up, holding a wireless microphone provided by the event staff. He clears his throat. projecting his voice across the massive ballroom. "Julian, the vision you have outlined today is nothing short of revolutionary," the man says, perfectly delivering the scripted lines. "Given the rapid pace of the artificial intelligence sector, we cannot afford to be bogged down by bureaucratic delays. I propose we bypass the traditional review period and initiate an immediate floor vote to officially ratify Restructuring Plan version 2 right here, right now." A ripple of orchestrated agreement washes through the front rows. Julian feigns a moment of humble hesitation, looking out over the sea of faces as if weighing a heavy burden. "Well," Julian begins, raising his microphone with a practiced, solemn expression, "if the shareholders are truly ready to embrace the future, then I am ready to lead us there. Let us bring it to a—" His voice is abruptly severed. A sharp, deafening electronic crack echoes through the auditorium, followed instantly by absolute silence. The main audio system dies completely. A split second later, the colossal, high-definition screen towering behind Julian goes pitch black. The sudden absence of the blinding stage lights plunges the front of the room into a heavy, disorienting gloom. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd of 500 investors. Confused murmurs break out. Julian taps his microphone frantically, his polished smile faltering into a look of genuine annoyance, assuming it is merely a catastrophic technical failure. Then, the silence is shattered by a deep, resonant bass note that shakes the floorboards. The massive screen behind him roars back to life, flooding the stage with a blinding, icy blue light. It is not displaying Julian's upward trending graphs or his sleek new corporate branding. It is displaying a single, massive image. It is the original Aetherus Dynamics logo. It is the sharp, complex geometric crest that I sketched by hand on a napkin more than 10 years ago, the exact logo Julian had officially banned from all company materials for being too aggressive. The emblem burns on the screen like a beacon, casting long, haunting shadows across the ballroom. At the absolute back of the hall, I step out from the darkness. I reach up, unclip the cheap plastic reception badge from my lapel, and let it fall. The plastic casing hits the solid marble floor with a sharp, distinct clatter that somehow cuts right through the ambient noise of the confused crowd. I begin to walk down the center aisle. I am not rushing. My pace is deliberate, measured, and unhurried. With every step I take, the sharp heel of my shoe strikes the marble, echoing through the cavernous room like the rhythmic ticking of a metronome, or a judge striking a gavel. People sitting at the edges of the aisle begin to turn their heads. The conversations die instantly as I pass them. The sea of tailored suits and silk dresses parts involuntarily, creating a wide path for me. They do not know what is happening, but the primal energy in the room has shifted so violently that they can feel it in their bones. The cinematic tension is so thick it threatens to suffocate the entire hall. I keep my eyes locked dead ahead. Up on the stage, the icy blue light from the screen illuminates the sheer terror blooming on Julian's face. The blood drains completely from his cheeks, leaving him a sickening shade of gray. His jaw works soundlessly, his fingers gripping the dead microphone so tightly his knuckles turn white. He recognizes the walk. He recognizes the absolute certainty in my posture. Down in the VIP section, Vance Thorne finally understands that the script has been flipped. His smug superiority shatters into violent panic. He leaps out of his plush seat, his face twisting into a mask of pure rage. He turns aggressively toward the perimeter of the room, wildly signaling for the private security contractors to intervene. He points directly at me, waving his arms and screaming silent orders to have me dragged out of the building. Nothing happens. The heavily armed security guards standing at the doors and lining the walls do not move a single muscle. They stand perfectly still, their hands clasped firmly in front of them, their faces completely impassive. Vance does not realize that Marcus spent the entire previous night meticulously replacing the hotel's contracted security detail with his own hand-picked, highly compensated team of former military operatives. They do not answer to Vance. They do not answer to Julian. They are just waiting for the show to finish. I reach the front of the hall, and smoothly ascend the velvet-lined stairs to the main stage. The heavy silence of 500 paralyzed investors presses down on the room. I do not look at the audience. I do not look at Vance, who is practically having a stroke in the front row. I walk directly up to Julian. He tries to hold his ground, but the sheer weight of his own guilt makes him physically shrink. I do not say a single word. I simply reach out, place my hand flat against his chest, and push him aside. He stumbles backward like a hollow mannequin. I step up to the crystal-clear glass podium. I unlatch the heavy brass locks of my black leather briefcase. I swing the lid open and place it firmly on the center of the table, ready to execute the final judgment. I reach into the open briefcase and pull out a massive, heavy stack of bound legal documents. I lift it high enough for the first few rows to see, then slam it down onto the glass podium. The sharp smack echoes through the silent ballroom like a gunshot. I lean into the microphone, my voice steady, cold, and amplified across the entire hall. "My name is Aspen Rodriguez," I announce, looking out over the sea of stunned faces. "And despite the fairy tale you just endured, I am not a relic of the past. I am the architect of this foundation, and I still hold the keys." I pause, letting the weight of my words settle. "Julian Sterling just pitched you a massive equity issuance designed to dilute the original founders. He told you it was a necessary step for an upcoming sale. What he failed to mention is that he cannot sell what he does not own. Through a series of blind trusts, I currently maintain 60% of the core voting shares of this enterprise. Furthermore, the central artificial intelligence source code does not belong to Aetherus Dynamics. It is legally owned by my private holding company. Aetherus merely leases it on a year-to-year basis. Julian's entire restructuring plan and his grand vision for an acquisition is absolutely worthless." The ballroom erupts into a chaotic symphony of gasps and outraged whispers. Down in the front row, Vance Thorne's mouth falls open. He turns to Julian, his eyes wide with a frantic, animalistic panic, demanding an explanation that Julian cannot give. I am not finished. I press a single button on my encrypted tablet resting on the podium. The giant screen behind me flashes. The icy blue logo vanishes, instantly replaced by a cascading waterfall of highly classified financial ledgers, offshore banking routing numbers, and forged dummy contracts. "You are not just listening to a liar," I tell the crowd, raising my voice to cut through the rising clamor. "You are looking at a thief. Behind me is the complete, unredacted history of every ghost consulting contract and money laundering scheme Julian and Vance have executed over the last 6 months. They have been quietly bleeding this company dry, funneling millions of dollars into private accounts while smiling to your faces." The murmurs in the crowd instantly morph into a roar of genuine fury. 500 heavily invested shareholders are suddenly realizing they have been played for absolute fools. Investors are shouting, pointing fingers, and standing up in their seats. The veneer of corporate civility shatters completely. I turn my head slowly, locking eyes with Julian. He is paralyzed, sweating profusely under the stage lights. I offer him a tight, razor-thin smile. "Did you honestly believe I would not notice you stealing my outdated biometric signatures to approve those transfers?" I ask him, stepping away from the podium and walking directly into his personal space. "Did you really think I would just sit back and watch you hand my life's work to our biggest competitor in Silicon Valley? By the way, Julian, you might want to check your corporate email, that rival company you sold my code to last week. They are currently drafting a lawsuit to sue you into personal bankruptcy, because the source code you so graciously handed over was actually a highly volatile, weaponized logic bomb. As of 8 o'clock this morning, it detonated inside their mainframes. It wiped their proprietary databases and completely incinerated their primary data center. You did not sell them an asset. You sold them a grenade, and it just blew up in their hands." Julian staggers backward as if I have physically struck him. His breath comes in shallow, panicked wheezes. Right on cue, down in the center of the auditorium, 3 figures rise simultaneously from their seats. The 3 original shark investors stand tall amidst the chaos, holding their glowing tablets high in the air for everyone to see. The digital cryptographic signatures are locked in. The supreme veto is now active, I declare. Instantly, the electronic infrastructure of the entire building reacts. Julian and Vance's company-issued phones begin buzzing violently with rapid-fire alerts. The automated system is purging them. It instantly invalidates their executive keycards, permanently revokes all their network access, and immediately freezes every single corporate-linked bank account under their names. They are officially severed from the empire. Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the rear of the ballroom burst open. The noise of the crowd dies down as a dozen federal agents march into the hall. They wear dark windbreakers with yellow letters across the back. Moving with practiced, tactical precision down the center aisle, they are holding federal arrest warrants for corporate wire fraud, money laundering, and biometric identity theft. Seeing the agents, Vance Thorne's knees buckle completely. He collapses back into his plush VIP chair, his arrogant face drained of all color, staring blankly at the ceiling as his entire Wall Street career disintegrates into dust. Julian falls to his knees right there on the stage. He is trembling violently, tears streaming down his face, completely broken. He reaches out a shaking hand toward my shoes. "Aspen, please," he begs, his voice cracking into a pathetic whimper. "I am sorry. I was just following his lead. Please have mercy." I do not look down at him. I do not grant the traitor a single ounce of my attention. I step back to the podium and adjust the microphone. I look straight out into the sea of hundreds of investors who are now standing in absolute, terrified awe. I let the silence stretch for one final, agonizing second before I deliver the killing blow. "This meeting is adjourned," I say, my voice ringing out with cold, absolute finality. And so are your careers. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. We would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please share your city or country in the comments below. If you found today's corporate revenge story entertaining and satisfying, please consider helping our channel with just $1. You can easily donate by scanning the PayPal QR code displayed on your screen, or by clicking the PayPal link in the description or the pinned comment. Your generous support allows us to pay our dedicated, hardworking staff, ensuring they have the money to feed their families and continue creating amazing, high-quality stories for you to enjoy. Thank you for your incredible kindness, and we will see you in the next episode.